Hey everyone, welcome to Mountain Beast Mysteries. I have a really crazy video today. We're going to be talking about something called the Lacerta File, and it is one of the craziest documents I've ever come across in the realm of UFOs and aliens and mysteries on this planet. It's quite unhinged and there's a lot to unpack, so just try and bear with me here. I'm going to try and keep the video concise, and I'm going to try and stay on track because there's a lot of stuff. But this document, the Lacerta Files, is what it's called. You can find it on Google if you search it. There's like text versions of it available, and there's also some pretty crappy versions of it on YouTube where people have had AI software read it and you can listen to it, but I'd recommend just reading it. It'll probably take you a little while. It's kind of lengthy. It might take you 45 minutes to an hour to read it. But supposedly back in 1999, there was a guy in Sweden who had an encounter at a cabin or a house somewhere in the woods with this being who was a female reptilian, being of some sort from this earth, not like an alien being. She was from Earth, like a native creature of the earth who supposedly, according to this crazy document, descended from dinosaurs. So you can already get a sense of how weird this is going to be. And I first heard about this document from Ben Walgate from 401 Files here on YouTube. He showed me it quite a while ago, and I think about it every now and then, just because sometimes there's things that are in this document that describe like the history of the earth. It kind of fills in a lot of holes of the earth's history that, we have a lot of questions for. There's a lot of blanks, and I talked in my last video a little bit about this, about there being like history that we don't really know. And it seems like there's a lot of missing pieces. But there's a lot of stuff that's described in this Lacerta File that it sounds really crazy. And it's probably all made up. It's probably all fake. But I guess there's a small chance that it could be real. So this lizard woman, this lady, she calls herself Lacerta because supposedly their names in their language and with their sounds and whatnot, we can't pronounce them. Like human beings supposedly can't pronounce their names. We can't do it with our tongues and our vocal range and whatnot. So in order for us to understand her name, she just called herself Lacerta. And anyways, so this guy she comes across observes her initially, I think, as like a female. They have the ability supposedly to like make people perceive them as humans if they want, because their true form it would be shocking for us to look at. And if you're a lizard person, you're not going to walk up to a human being and be like, yo, I'm going to tell you a bunch of stuff to write down that you can share with the world. Like, you'd be freaked out. You wouldn't be sitting down for 3 hours with this reptilian, willing to listen. You'd be scared. But anyways, this guy, he had this interview with this woman on multiple occasions. There's 2 parts to the document. And she told him all this crazy stuff about like the origins of humanity and human beings and where we come from and the origins of her race and these alien wars that supposedly went on. And this guy, he took the recording, like the stuff he wrote down and whatnot, and he sent it to another guy who I guess sent it to somebody to translate from Swedish to English to share across North America and worldwide and whatnot. So it's like the document was released by the guy who translated it, who is a friend of the guy who actually encountered this reptilian woman. But anyways, so they supposedly live in giant cave systems underground, and they're really underground, like 2,000 to 8,000 meters is what she says, which is really far. Supposedly they have entrances at certain places, like usually mountainous regions that are actually hidden. But she says in the document that there's been a few times in history where entrances have been found by people, and it usually doesn't end well. You know, we're not supposed to see them. We're not supposed to find the entrances. These people are hiding. These reptilians are hiding underground in these cave systems. They have cities underground. They have like artificial sunlight because they bathe in it like a lizard. She explains that her race descended from dinosaurs, which survived a cataclysmic event. And after the cataclysmic event, which we think nowadays to be like the meteor, the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs, 3 different reptilian species or dinosaur species apparently survived that, and then through evolution over like 50 million years or whatnot, they became like advanced reptilian beings. And she says that at one point they all came together, these 3 races came together and were able to combine their genetics into one species, and that's her species. Sounds so stupid already when I like record myself talking about it. She also said, this is really crazy. She said that 65 million years ago, right before the dinosaurs went extinct, it wasn't an asteroid that wiped them out. So there's that big meteor impact in like the Yucatan Peninsula or whatever that they think wiped out the dinosaurs. Well, she said that 65 million years ago, a race of humanoids, like humans basically, came to Earth in search of minerals and like resources, specifically copper, because it's used in their technology for whatever purposes. But all kinds of like materials and whatnot, but mostly copper. These humans came here looking for that. They supposedly built colonies in like, I think the Arctic or Antarctica or something, and in Asia. And they, for a period of time, coexisted with, you know, the dinosaurs that we know of. And then she goes on to say 150 years after that, a race of reptilian aliens show up. And the humans that were here tried to be like, they tried to make contact peacefully, and the reptilians weren't peaceful. And supposedly there was a war, and they started fighting this war in the atmosphere and wherever else. And she says in the document that what we thought was like an asteroid impact was actually a type of fusion bomb, experimental fusion bomb from these reptilians, and they used it, they sent it down, and it detonated in the Yucatan Peninsula and wiped everything out and caused nuclear fallout for 200 years and something like that, you know. Wiped out pretty much everything except, you know, species that were in water and like little mammals and I guess 3 dinosaur species. She says that these species evolved, like they were able to get like thumbs, kind of like the iguanodon. If you've heard of that dinosaur, the iguanodon, it has like thumbs. And I guess their brains were a little bit more advanced or whatnot. But it took like 50 million years for them to evolve into an actual like advanced species, supposedly. It sounds really stupid. But it gets very interesting. You have to read it. And you're going to be like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever read. But then you're going to be like, some of it, for some stupid, weird reason, resonates. But it's probably because we have all these missing holes in history, and we're looking for something to fill them in with. Anyways, I'm trying to think of where else to go with this, because there's so many directions I could go telling this story. For the vast majority of time since the dinosaurs, this reptilian race that this Lacerta being is from, they were the only ones here really that were intelligent. It was just them and all the regular wildlife and creatures of this earth. But she goes on to say that 1.5 million years ago, another race of humans showed up. And they, apparently, this Lacerta being's race, they were surprised to find out that these humanoids showed up not in search of raw materials or copper or anything like that. They were surprised to find out that they showed up to modify the genetics of like primates that were naturally evolving here on Earth. And she tries to explain in the document that the amount of time it's apparently taken human beings to evolve to what we are now as an intelligent species is not enough time. It should take like 100 million years or something a lot longer than what it's taken for us to become what we are. And we do know that, like, when you look at evolution and the fossil records, some things don't really make sense, but I don't know. This story's pretty crazy. So I guess these aliens show up. They make human beings somehow, like a version of human beings, not us now, but it's an early iteration. So they show up, they supposedly take like 20,000 specimens or so of primate, like natural evolved primate from this earth. They take them and they leave for a certain amount of years. I can't remember how many years it was, but they leave with these apes and then they come back with the new, like the humans that they made, the first iteration, and they come back and they drop them off here. She says that supposedly there were 7 iterations, and we're the 7th iteration of human being, of civilization that's been here. And our iteration was like created, I think she said it was like 5,000 years ago or so. She also said like the 5th iteration created the pyramids of Giza, and other civilizations after that tried to like replicate them, but they couldn't really. And if you look at the pyramids of Giza, they are quite unique, and they're the only ones that I know of off the top of my head that seem to have characteristics that would suggest there's some sort of generator, like power generator or communication device, which is interesting. There's a lot of information about that online. But she said that the first iteration was put here, and then they left, like these alien humans left, and eventually came back and wiped that first iteration out and made a new iteration, and they were just like getting wiped out. So I'm thinking, when I'm reading this document, we're the 7th iteration. What if they want to make an 8th one and they come back and try and wipe us out? You know? There's lots of weird stuff like that in the story that you think about if it's true, which it probably isn't. It's just, I don't know. The fact that it's like a translator who's a friend of the guy. I'm sorry, I got the camera like pointed up here. The fact that it's like a document translated by a translator who's a friend of the guy is like, if you're hoaxing it, it's like putting the blame on someone else who probably doesn't exist, you know? And in the document, like it says there's many times where it's like, you guys won't believe this, like humans won't believe this, but this is the truth. It's 100% the truth. And then supposedly the person who was asking her all the questions was like, I didn't believe this at first, and I thought it was like crazy, but I believe now it's the truth. Everybody, all the humans involved in the story don't believe it initially. And the translator, I don't think ever believes it. He just claims he's doing the job of a translator, which kind of makes it seem like he's probably hoaxing it and trying to make it seem like he's not the hoaxer. He's just doing the job of translating. So there's no blame on him if he's making it up. That being said, the document isn't like for sale. Like, you don't have to pay for it. It's a free thing. So why would you hoax something like that if there wasn't going to be any financial gain, you know? Like, You're literally hoaxing just for the sake of looking stupid and nobody believing you. And I don't think even actually the real identities of these people were ever revealed that are in the story. I don't think anyone's ever tracked any of these people down. But yeah, supposedly human beings are creation of alien humanoids of some kind. And she says some other things like, when we were created, we were intentionally like dumbed down and made to be able to not do certain things. Like, she said that pretty much every alien race that's visited this planet, and her race as well, have like advanced mind capabilities like telepathy and telekinesis and whatnot. Supposedly she like used this telekinesis to move objects in front of the guy who was talking to her, and he actually witnessed it. She describes there being 14 other alien races visiting this Earth, 8 of which abduct people for various reasons, mostly to just learn about us. There's no harm in it. It's traumatic to the people who become aware of it, but they're not supposed to remember. And she says there's 3 of these races that are actually hostile, who have also been involved with the governments here, but they deceive the governments here. Like, they're not truthful about what they want and what they're doing. Also, her race, this reptilian race, was apparently in multiple wars with this race of humanoids that created us, and these humanoids that supposedly created us would tell us that these reptilians were evil and bad, and there's a war between good and evil and whatnot. And a lot of the stuff that was explained is like what's, it can be found in biblical texts and whatnot. And the guy apparently asks her in the document, he's like, how come there's no like record of you guys like in history and whatnot? And she's like, there is. Like, if you look at some of the pictographs or hieroglyphs or whatnot in like South America, there's depictions of people or beings that look like reptilians or lizards, and they're wearing like clothes and stuff. And I've seen these depictions, images of these depictions online. They do exist. And it could be like this race of humanoids that showed up. It could be the Anunnaki. You hear people talking about the Anunnaki and the Sumerian stuff. Like, that is a very hot topic nowadays. Yeah. But she says there were a lot of conflicts, a lot of wars, and she said, this was back in 1999 when this came out. She says that they expect there to be another war in the next 10 to 20 years. 20 years after 1999 was 2019, and you know what happened in 2019. Things got a little weird. Things got pretty weird, and they're still very weird. So, who knows if that's just a coincidence? It probably is. But could you imagine if there were 3 like hostile alien races here messing with our governments, and there's chaos in the world, and maybe it's caused by these, alien beings. Maybe the governments are like in conflict with these aliens, and there is a war going on, and we don't know about it, and all the crazy stuff happening in the world. We're just like blaming the government, and they're probably like, oh, I'm sorry, like we're trying to fix everything, but we're fighting aliens here. We just can't tell you. Like, what if something like that was going on? It's just something funny to think about. But there hasn't been like, I don't know, the UFO subject is really hot right now. Everyone's talking about it. It's in the news. We talk about like Project Bluebeam, like a staged alien invasion, but what if there actually is something? If there's 14 different races of alien beings already here, and 3 of them were hostile, you'd think there would already be some sort of conflict, but who knows, man? Who knows? Oh, she does say there's a 15th. There might be a 15th like group of aliens still here, but they're so far advanced that they're not even really what we think they are, and they're so advanced that if they wanted to destroy us, they could do it with their minds. Apparently, they could just think about it and wipe us out. That sounds pretty far-fetched, but I guess we don't know what's out there in the vastness of space, in the deep reaches of the universe. Yeah, I'd recommend just going and having a read through it. It's entertaining, if anything. Don't like think that it's real, because it is crazy. But like, I don't know, it seems like if a person had a knowledge of the natural history of Earth and a knowledge of, archaeology and evolution and of the subject of UFOs and aliens, that they'd be able to fill in the gaps with a made-up story and create this Lacerta File as an interesting thing, or maybe a social experiment or something. But nobody, I don't think, ever gained financially from it. So it's kind of weird. And Ben from 401 Files, my friend Ben, he had an experience when he was a child of encountering some sort of reptilian looking, like, upright being in the woods in the UK. He's got videos on his channel. If you want to check out 401 Files, go to his channel, and you can go back in his history of videos. You can probably find it. But when he was a kid, they were on like a field trip or something in the school bus, and the school bus pulled over next to these woods so the kids could have a break or whatever. And Ben walks off into the woods and sees this thing, this reptilian looking being walking through the woods. It's a pretty crazy story, and he's I trust him with my life. So maybe he did see one of these things. Maybe there's an entrance to one of their cave systems there. Who knows? Yeah, just take this. Don't take it seriously. Don't take it seriously. Just take it as entertainment. Go read it, and then let me know what you think down in the comments. The Lacerta File. That's all I wanted to talk about today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Mountain Beast Mysteries.